In the dangerous depths of a coal mine, a worker prepares to go down. He remembers a lesson about survival, not about being strong or smart, but about adapting to tough situations. He takes a leap into the mine, landing hard and confirming that the coal is mature and ready for extraction. His coworkers watch in amazement as he breaks through a tough spot with just one hit. He shares that he learned about gravity from a book, which helps him apply more force than his own weight. The others are impressed, but they remind him that not many people would bungee jump into a mine. They explain that coal is a rare and valuable fossil fuel that sparked an industrial revolution, powering cities and worth more than gold. As the workday wraps up, the boss hands out paychecks. The workers celebrate, excited to spend their money on fun, but he receives his pay with deductions, feeling down but keeping quiet about it. When he gets home, he dives into his books. Later that night, a coworker invites him to a drinking party, but he turns it down, saying he's too old for that kind of fun. The coworker teases him and walks off, while others gossip about why someone so talented stays in the mine. He knows the reason all too well. He's stuck here due to circumstances he can't change. His mind drifts back to 10 years ago when he first arrived, a scared kid in tears. A miner had warned him that survival in the mine required protective gear, but he didn't know the dangers at the time. That miner, feeling sorry for him, took off his own goggles and mask and gave them to him without saying a word. From that moment, he learned to endure, knowing he owed his survival to that stranger's kindness. Now, he works hard in the mine and studies, putting all his earnings toward paying off debts. His coworker has always helped him with essentials and books. He decides he can't keep being a burden. He needs to find a way out. The next morning, chaos erupts in town as news spreads about a terrible accident at a new excavation site, claiming nearly 50 lives. Workers talk about the dangers of new digs, toxic gases, and the unpredictability of underground conditions. Some believe in spirits, thinking those who die in the mine curse the place. He brushes off these stories as just folklore, though he finds it interesting how they turn into urban legends. His coworker plans a trip to the city for supplies and invites him along. Seeing no better option, he agrees, and they take a steam engine to Pembroke, amazed by the city powered by their coal. The technological wonders blow their minds, from steam-powered buildings to automated walkways. He spots a bookstore and rushes in, but accidentally bumps into a well-dressed man. The man doesn't apologize, and his coworker quickly steps in to ease the tension before leading him away. A group of wealthy onlookers laughs at them, mocking the idea that reading could help someone escape poverty. He feels embarrassed, not expecting such a reaction. Gordon rolls his eyes at the rich folks around them, but tells his friend to focus on finding a good book while they look around. He points out that only the wealthy really thrive in this city, spending money without a second thought. No matter how hard workers like them save, they'll never be able to afford such luxuries. Kanata's attention drifts to a girl among the rich crowd. She catches his eye, looking like an angel from a storybook. Gordon notices his distraction and teases him, recognizing the signs of a crush. Kanata feels confused, wondering if something is wrong with him, not realizing the feelings bubbling up inside. Back at the mine, their supervisor announces a new excavation site in the western zone. The risks are high, but so are the potential rewards. Gordon sees this as a chance for Kanata to prove himself. As they start working, they find rich deposits of coal, but there's an unsettling feeling in the air. Kanata feels anxious, but before he can say anything, the ground gives way. Panic spreads as workers scramble to escape the collapsing earth. In the chaos, Kanata sees a huge, glowing eye in the darkness. A monstrous creature emerges, ready to attack him. He tries to run, but Gordon yanks him away just in time as the beast lunges for them. Kanata, terrified, starts to believe the rumors about spirits might actually be true. Desperate to save his friend, he remembers a book about gravitational force and comes up with a plan. He picks up a massive rock and throws it at the creature, using what he learned about impact and energy. The strategy works, allowing him to grab Gordon and escape just before the mine collapses completely. Suddenly, a stranger appears, thanking Kanata for distracting the beast. Before they can fully understand what's happening, the creature explodes. Kanata, still in shock, watches as the stranger seems amused by his reckless bravery. The stranger asks how he managed to hurt the creature, and Kanata explains that he acted on instinct to protect his friend. The stranger laughs, saying that most people either freeze or run away, but Kanata's boldness is a rare kind of madness he hasn't seen in a long time. Just then, a companion of the stranger arrives, calling him reason and saying that medical help is on the way. As the stranger leaves, he talks about a report on the civilian who faced the creature, finding it impressive that an ordinary miner made such a quick and smart decision to defeat the beast. His companion, however, is skeptical, insisting that it must have been pure luck and wanting to know the miner's name. Back at the mine's management office, they face their supervisor, who speaks in a serious tone. He tells them to forget everything about the incident. The authorities want silence, warning that any leaks could cost them their lives. The official story is simple, a series of lucky coincidences. They must stick to this version and get back to work. Then, the supervisor hands Kanata an unexpected letter. It's an official commendation from MRDO Canon, and Kanata reads it in disbelief. The letter praises his bravery and offers him a spot in their ranks. Both of them are left speechless. Just when they think it can't get any crazier, their boss reveals another surprise. All of Kanata's debts have been paid off. He tells him to pack his things and leave immediately. Overwhelmed, Kanata processes the news while Gordon celebrates his friend's newfound freedom. Kanata remembers a lesson he once learned. Survival doesn't favor the strongest or the smartest, but those who can adapt. The scene shifts to Arya's house, where Kanata relaxes on the sofa, confirming with his friend Elliot that the mining boys are arriving at MRDO today. Elliot raises an eyebrow, questioning why they would want to recruit an ordinary person. Arya remembers a conversation from a week ago, when the boy had asked if he dropped a boulder to protect someone important. The boy had also pointed out that the boulder could have hurt someone too. He had stood there, serious and quiet, explaining that he had figured out the best way to throw it based on his speed and direction. Thinking about this, Arya suddenly stands up, realizing that pulling off such a move in a high-pressure situation is beyond what he can grasp. He chuckles and tells Elliot to keep an eye on the mining boy across the room. Kanata arrives at Murdo, where a woman greets him and tells him he's being temporarily admitted to the Meteoria Research and Development Organization. As he looks around, he's amazed. He remembers that Murdo was originally set up to manage Meteorian Coal and study how to extract it while considering the city's needs. Now, it has grown into a major research center, supporting the country's energy demands. While exploring, a friendly robot approaches him, asking how it can help. Before he can answer, a large machine comes down from above, and a girl's voice comments that the place feels like something out of a sci-fi book. The woman next to him acknowledges the girl, Hillary, and welcomes her. The machine opens up, revealing the same girl he had seen before. His eyes widen in surprise as she rushes over and hugs him, excited that they're finally meeting. She introduces herself and tells him she'll be overseeing his progress at MRDO. He remembers that she's the girl from that day. The woman beside him hands him over to Hillary and leaves. Hillary cheerfully takes him on a tour of MRDO, telling him not to be nervous. She shows him the training facilities and leads him to the preparatory training center, explaining that it's a 2-year program for training MRDO researchers. Her paths here split between getting a PhD and specializing in coal mining operations, with foundational knowledge needed before taking on responsibilities. As they walk, people greet Hillary warmly, but when they see Kanata next to her, they whisper among themselves. Noticing their reactions, he asks her seriously if he'll be going to school. She confirms it, leaving him speechless. Education has always felt like a distant dream for him. Sensing his thoughts, she playfully decides to show him something cool. She takes him to Murdo's shared library, where he's blown away by the huge collection of books. Spotting a complete encyclopedia on steam engines, he eagerly asks if they have the first edition of Principles of Biology. He wonders how much it costs to get such books, but she tells him everything here is completely free. He struggles to believe this, reflecting on his past when books were always old and worn out. Now he stands in front of a treasure trove of knowledge. She offers to be his mentor, assuring him they'll spend time together and encouraging him to ask anything without hesitation. Later, as he sits at a dining table, he wonders if everything around him is too good to be true. The sight and smell of the food seem unreal. She tells him to eat, reminding him that everything here is free. As she steps away for a moment, he takes a bite, and the incredible taste overwhelms him. The meat is so tender it melts in his mouth. He thinks about his friend back in the mine, feeling grateful for this new opportunity. Gordon finds himself reminiscing about a meal, wishing his friend was there to share it with him. He recalls a funny moment when his friend joked about the bread being so hard it could be used as a hammer. They had laughed together, and he remembers the advice to soak it in soup, which makes him smile as he thinks about his own cooking skills, or lack thereof. He wonders how his friend is doing now. Suddenly, he's jolted back to reality when a guy pulls out the chair behind him and makes a snide comment about how pitiful he looks. The guy is known as Elliot, a close associate of someone important at the academy. Other students whisper among themselves, some warning him not to make eye contact, while others express pity for him. Feeling defeated, Gordon grabs his collar and warns Elliot not to look at him like that again, threatening him with a vague promise of violence. Elliot, unimpressed, crushes Gordon's coal mining goggles underfoot, mocking him for bringing such cheap stuff to the academy and calling him a disgrace. Just when things seem like they might escalate, a girl arrives and notices the commotion. As she walks over, she quickly throws a tablecloth over Gordon, tying it around him and dragging him across the floor. The other students watch in stunned silence as he struggles to break free. The girl calmly explains that this is how troublemakers are dealt with in their world. The knot she tied is tight, and the students murmur in disbelief, amazed that someone as powerful as Elliot could be taken down so easily. The girl seems surprised too, realizing that Elliot must have seen something special in Gordon. She apologizes for making him wait and gives him a warm hug, which catches him off guard. Meanwhile, Elliot, still tangled in the cloth, demands to be freed, but she ignores him and cheerfully leads Gordon to the dormitory. When they arrive, she shows him his new room, which is spacious and clean, nothing like he's ever lived in before. She mentions that it's a double room, but if his roommate hasn't arrived yet, he can enjoy the space alone. As he takes in his new surroundings, she suddenly flops down on his bed. Gordon is taken aback, unsure of how to react. His heart races and he instinctively looks away. She then moves behind him, placing her hands on his shoulders, and tells him that before he can settle in, he needs to pass a test from a teacher. She instructs him to take off his clothes. Feeling stunned, he hesitates, but eventually complies, lying down on the bed, overwhelmed with embarrassment. She runs her hand across his chest, seeming impressed, and then asks if he's ever kissed anyone. He shakes his head, feeling a mix of shock and laughter. She tells him to relax and assures him she'll take care of everything. Out of nowhere, he feels something warm and wet on his lips. Confused, he opens his eyes and sees a small creature coming out of a bottle she's holding. The creature grows larger, and he feels his tongue stretching unnaturally. Long, rope-like appendages wrap around him, and he starts to panic as he realizes he's losing strength and consciousness. Later, he wakes up to her voice, feeling disoriented in a wheelchair. She reassures him that he passed the test while he was out cold and explains that she brought him to this place. As he gathers his thoughts, he notices huge, monstrous creatures trapped in glass containers. She tells him these creatures come from deep underground and that the Academy's real mission is to fight a looming threat. She reveals that only the best candidates are chosen for this special program, and he was selected thanks to a strong recommendation. He's stunned as she congratulates him on being accepted into a combat unit where he'll have to risk his life fighting these monsters. At a loss for words, he feels the weight of the danger ahead. Sensing his hesitation, she reaches out her hand, promising they'll face it together. With a grateful smile, she thanks him. and though he's still unsure, he watches her excitement and silently decides to take on this challenge for her. The scene shifts to the supervisor, who welcomes the students and kicks off the combat aptitude test. Kanata thinks about how important this test is, realizing it will shape his future. Suddenly, she excitedly tells him that his task is to fight against some creatures called moratoriums. Remembering his earlier experience, he's shocked and questions what's going on, trying to keep a cheerful face. She explains that he just went through a compatibility test and surprisingly, he passed. She tells him that regular humans can't fight moratoriums, which means he's been given a special power. He's still a bit confused, finally connecting it to the strange event from before. She hands him a small creature in a bottle, saying this will be his partner for life. He's stunned to see it's the same creature he encountered earlier. She clarifies that the pod he saw before is where his partner recovers and advises him to always keep it close. Before leaving, she mentions they need to head to another location for the real test. Still trying to wrap his head around everything, he follows her to the new site, feeling nervous and reminding himself to stay calm, analyze what's happening, and think through his options. As he stands with the other students, he wonders if passing this test is crucial to becoming a fighter. The instructor announces that they will release the moratoriums and the students will have to fight them. Afterward, examiners will judge their performance, and those who don't meet the required score will be disqualified. He's shocked to realize this is a real battle. The instructor introduces the examiners, who are last year's successful candidates. Among them, he spots a familiar face and is surprised to see her. She passed the test before him. As he processes this, Uriah arrives, and the students erupt in cheers. He's amazed to see the legendary commander known for defeating the most moratoriums. Kanata watches the excitement and recalls seeing Uriah before. After a moment, he remembers that he was the one who fought a dangerous creature while trying to save his friend. Now everything clicks into place. Among the students, a boy speaks up but is quickly silenced by a girl named Ivy Muller. The others react in shock. Kanata, feeling out of the loop, wonders if he's the only one who doesn't understand what's going on. Standing there confused, he overhears a student wishing for bad weather to cancel the test. Noticing the boy's pale face, he asks if he's feeling okay. Startled, the boy apologizes and insists on staying quiet, leaving Kanata even more puzzled. Suddenly, the instructor introduces the moratoriums they have to fight. When he sees the massive creature, he's completely stunned. The instructor announces that they have 3 hours to complete the test and warns that no help will be given. Every year, students die during this test, and Kanata feels overwhelmed as he tries to understand the danger he's in. The instructor urges everyone to treat this like real combat. As the other students get ready, Kanata finds himself frozen in place. An examiner tells him to activate his power and move forward, but he hesitates, startled. The examiner warns him that if he doesn't act, he'll fail right away. Just then, the girl from earlier steps in, asking for a moment to help him. She admits she made a mistake and tells him to follow her lead. She explains that he needs to mentally connect with his partner. Still confused, he hesitates but decides to follow her instructions. As soon as he mentally commands the connection, his partner grows larger and stands in front of him. He's shocked and struggles to understand what's happening. Suddenly, his partner opens its mouth and swallows his head, causing him to panic. Not knowing how to react, he hears her say that controlling his partner is essential. Still feeling overwhelmed, he asks how to do that. She explains that he must not let his partner take control. Meanwhile, an examiner expresses concern to Uriah about Kanata's poor performance, but Uriah remains calm and advises patience. On the ground, blood drips from Kanata's nose and mouth. Elliot, another student, mocks him for fainting during the test. Kanata, seeing himself in this state, feels shocked and confused. An examiner approaches and asks if he's lost consciousness. Elliot smirks, saying he's still awake but apologizes for holding up the test. Elliot introduces himself, reminding Kanata of their earlier encounter in the cafeteria. Kanata recalls the meeting, feeling even more confused. Elliot delivers a message from Arya, saying that if Kanata fails, he will die. Stunned, Kanata demands to know more. Elliot explains that he was brought to MRDO to become a warrior and has been implanted with a Bioshock device. Kanata struggles to process this information. Elliot continues, revealing that his partner was once uncontrollable, but is now a secret weapon. Once implanted, there is no going back to a normal life. Unlike other students who might be reassigned if they fail, Kanata has no other options. Failure means elimination. Horrified, he hears Arya mockingly call him a low-born boy, challenging him to prove his worth. The instructor announces that the test will resume and the moratoriums are released. As he sees the massive creatures approaching, he feels overwhelmed. Elliot tells him to survive, but even if he does, he'll still fail. Frustration wells up inside him as he recognizes the unfairness of the system. He resents how those from poorer backgrounds are kept in the dark and forced into these brutal trials. Books had been his only escape, but they couldn't change his fate. As despair grips him, a terrifying creature appears before him, and he freezes in fear, realizing the harshness of the world around him. Suddenly, I.B. Mahler takes down a moratorium in seconds, pushing Kanata aside and scolding him for being in the way. The instructors are shocked. She sets a new record by defeating the creature in just 7 seconds, leaving the other students in awe. Her incredible feat leads many to think that the moratoriums must be weak. Feeling encouraged by this, one student steps up confidently, expecting an easy win. He attacks, but his strike has no effect. The moratorium remains unfazed and quickly retaliates, landing a powerful blow to his stomach. Blood spills from his mouth and he collapses. Kanata and the others watch in horror, their confidence shattered. Fear grips them as they realize the moratorium's armor is nearly impossible to penetrate, making their attacks useless. Whispers spread among the students as they remember the instructor's warnings. People die during this test every year. Now they understand it wasn't just talk. Panic spreads as another moratorium approaches, towering over them. Some students start advising each other to keep their distance, but chaos erupts on the battlefield. Amid the fear, Kanata suddenly bolts, his mind racing with doubts. He wonders if Mahler is just an exception, and if fighting seriously even matters. Elliot watches him leave, smirking at his cowardice, but Kanata doesn't pay him any mind. Meanwhile, instructors rush to help the injured and call for medical assistance. One instructor reports to Arya that students have scattered into the forest. He stays calm, waiting for updates from the examiners. Using his magic, he summons surveillance eyes to track the students, and one follows Kanata, revealing his frantic escape. As the students continue to retreat, a moratorium relentlessly chases them, targeting a lower-ranking student named Ames Sim. Seeing this, Kanata abruptly changes direction and rushes toward him, questioning why someone like him is even in this situation. Before the moratorium can strike, he intervenes and pulls Sim to safety. Still in shock, Sim stares at him in disbelief. Just as they're about to escape, the moratorium moves again, but suddenly stops and retreats, leaving them frozen in confusion. Overwhelmed, Sim questions why Kanata saved him when there was no benefit. Kanata recalls a moment from his past when someone had saved him, remembering the relief and gratitude he felt. Moved by Kanata's words, Sim expresses disbelief that anyone would help him. Overcome with emotion, he introduces himself, but his eyes widen when he notices Kanata's wounded hand starting to freeze over. Guilt washes over him as he apologizes, regretting that Kanata got hurt while saving him. Confused, Kanata struggles to understand what's happening. Sim, sensing his uncertainty, explains that his partner is likely trying to repair his damaged cells. He identifies it as cryoparasitic symbiosis, a rare healing ability. Excited, he adds that very few people can handle such an ability. Feeling overwhelmed, Kanata interrupts, urging Sim to lower his voice, realizing his mistake. Sim apologizes and reminds him that they're still in danger. Removing his glasses, Kanata reveals his glowing eyes, which illuminate the surroundings and show his long-range vision ability. However, he admits that if they get caught, he'll be powerless in a fight. With a bitter smile, he calls it a worthless ability as he thinks about how it can help against the moratoriums. Kanata recalls how his partner granted him power, but the memory of his past rampage haunts him, and he fears losing control again. Sim speculates about the abilities Kanata might develop, but Kanata remains lost in thought. Noticing that Kanata isn't paying attention, Sim questions his focus. After thinking it over, Kanata decides to proceed carefully and take necessary precautions. He starts setting traps using his abilities, securing ropes and placing stones. Sim watches in amazement as Kanata constructs them effortlessly with one hand. Curious, Sim asks who Kanata really is. Instead of answering, Kanata remembers a lesson from Gordon, who taught him that even a small injury shouldn't stop someone, and that even feet can be used as hands if needed. Now he realizes those tough lessons have become an asset for his survival. Elliot arrives, witnessing Kanata's resourcefulness and surprised at how he's adapted. Despite his combat disadvantage, he smirks, thinking Kanata seems confident for now, but Elliot plans to teach him a lesson. Unaware of Elliot's presence, Kanata eagerly asks Sim how to improve his control. Before Sim can respond, Elliot destroys the traps, drawing their attention. He announces that he can help them, but quickly reminds them that teamwork is not allowed in the exam, declaring they're about to be disqualified. Sim panics and blames himself for their situation, tears welling in his eyes as he apologizes to both of them before running off, shouting that he hopes to pass. Kanata calls after him, but he doesn't stop, disappearing into the distance. Elliot smirks as he watches the scene unfold. Elliot watches closely, his face serious, as he reminds himself that only an hour is left. Kanata, on the other hand, stays still, feeling frustrated and doubtful about his chances. He's feeling down, thinking he might fail. But then he notices something strange. The creature keeps its tail hidden underground, only showing it for a moment before covering it up again. Even in the heat of battle, he suspects this behavior means something important. He decides to follow the creature and checks the spot where its tail was. He finds nothing special, just regular dirt, and even tastes it to be sure. Elliot, observing this odd behavior, grows more irritated, thinking he's losing his mind. Suddenly, the creature falls into a trap. Earlier, he had been encouraged by the thought of using a boulder to cause damage, so he decides to try that method. He kicks a big rock into the pit, but the creature curls up, protecting itself. The attack doesn't work. Realizing that outside force won't help, he studies the creature's shell and compares it to turtles and crabs. With its soft underside, he theorizes that the creature's belly might be its weak point. Time is running out, so he goes for the belly. But as soon as the creature climbs out, his strike has no effect. The creature seems completely unharmed, and before he can react, it knocks him down. He realizes that even what he thought was a weak spot is actually tough. He notices his wound starting to freeze, reminding him that his companion can only stop the bleeding, not heal him. He wishes he could control this power to fight back, but he knows he can't rely on uncertainties. He refocuses on the battle as he moves forward. The creature attacks again, sending him crashing to the ground, blood dripping from his nose and mouth. He understands the danger he's in but refuses to give up. Convinced the creature must have another weakness, he examines its behavior again, wondering why it keeps its tail buried. Watching closely, he notices something strange about the spikes on its tail. If the creature only shows its tail when threatened, it must be important for its survival. He thinks of different possibilities. Maybe they absorb nutrients through their tails or communicate with vibrations. Both ideas turn out to be wrong. Running out of options, he compares them to other animals. Fish breathe through gills, while mammals like whales need air, but this creature seems different. He realizes its shell is completely sealed, meaning it must have a hidden way to breathe. This leads him to a new idea. The tail must be a breathing organ. As the creature moves closer, he feels its body brush against him. He senses that its back and belly are tough, but there must be a weakness in its breathing tail. He reaches for the tail, looking for an opening. Elliot smirks, noting that only 5 minutes are left. But Kanata stays focused on the tail, determined to test his theory. He leads the creature into another trap, causing heavy stones to fall on it. Elliot watches in amazement, wondering why Kanata keeps pushing. Kanata observes carefully, just as the creature curls up defensively. Its tail pops out of the ground for a brief moment. That's the moment he's been waiting for. Seizing the chance, he charges forward, knowing that failure means death. Memories flood his mind. People mocking him, his tough upbringing, the tragic loss of his pet canary, and warnings that hesitation could cost him everything. He remembers working in unstable caves, barely escaping a collapse. Now, he tells himself to trust his instincts. Suddenly, he hears a warm voice in his memory, reminding him of someone special in his life. He tightens his grip on his weapon, refusing to lose anything else. With all his strength, he strikes the creature's tail, and a brilliant light bursts from his body. In that moment, he feels like he's finally adapted and matured. He has passed the entrance exam, securing a spot in the nation's leading tech city. Each day, he thinks of his companion and feels a renewed sense of purpose. The change from the coal mines to the high-tech world of Dio is huge, filling Elliot with both wonder and doubt. Hillary comes over, excited about his new uniform and congratulating him, but he stays serious. He thinks back to the tough entrance exam and his new role as a preparatory student in a secret research group, feeling skeptical about how they could have both attended the same seminar. Hillary quickly shifts the topic. Just then, Uriah walks in and introduces himself as their special professor for the next 2 years in the elite Crawford seminar. The students exchange surprised looks at his presence. Hillary eagerly tells Kanata that this seminar is super hard to get into, and his acceptance shows he's got some serious skills. As she talks, some students call Uriah Professor, but he tells them to just call him by his name, encouraging everyone to speak up. Ibi, feeling frustrated, demands to know how Kanata managed to outshine her. Elliot quietly agrees with her, thinking about how Kanata was the last to finish the exam, while Ibi passed easily. This makes Kanata question his own ranking. Arya jumps in to explain that Kanata's strength is in his ability to come up with ideas. Unlike most students who just relied on brute strength to beat the creature, Kanata understood the importance of its core. Arya goes on to say that the core acts like a heart. It's not just a weak spot, but a resource that can be reused. When this core is put into a human body, it allows the person to borrow the creature's powers, a technique used in combat. Kanata is shocked to realize that the companion he received was actually the creature's core. Arya reassures everyone that Mr. Doe's focus is on research, not military stuff. Their missions usually involve collecting samples or retrieving cores without damage. Turning to Ibi, Uriah challenges her to think about how she would fight without relying on brute strength. Kanata, lost in thought, suddenly hears Elliot say that brains should be the key in battles. Impressed, Uriah highlights the importance of strategy, explaining that when people face the unknown, they often just use force. He shares examples from nature, showing how having more knowledge leads to better problem solving. He clarifies that the entrance exam was meant to test analytical skills, not just fighting ability. Kanata, without any outside help, had instinctively used this method, making his performance one of the best ever seen. Uriah formally invites him to join the seminar, leaving the other students in shock. Kanata, feeling overwhelmed, wonders why someone like him, a minor, needs to study so hard. Hillary beams with pride, telling him he must have worked really hard under tough conditions. Meanwhile, Elliot feels a pang of jealousy, thinking that Uriah has never praised anyone like this before. Despite the praise, Kanata lowers his head, questioning if he had been wrong. As Ambi watches, he realizes that the people around him aren't just researchers, they're also fighters. Arya tells the class to focus on honing their skills in forming hypotheses, encouraging them to study and enjoy the journey. Kanata, feeling a mix of emotions, wonders if this is where he truly belongs. Just then, an instructor rushes in, reporting an emergency. A riot breaks out, cutting the lesson short. As the students process what just happened, Elliot, overwhelmed with jealousy, suddenly punches Kanata, knocking him to the ground. He warns Kanata not to let the praise go to his head. Hillary, furious, demands to know what's going on, but Elliot coldly dismisses her, calling her an embarrassment to their family. Kanata, taken aback by the mention of family, asks what he means. Hesitantly, Hillary reveals that Elliot is her twin brother. Shocked, Kanata extends a hand in reconciliation, calling him bro. However, Elliot glares and refuses to shake hands, telling Kanata never to call him that. The other students watch in silence, while Ibi, feeling overwhelmed, wishes she could leave. Later, as Kanata and Hillary walk together, he struggles to wrap his head around the fact that they're siblings. She feels guilty and apologizes for her brother, calling him a failure. Kanata reassures her with a smile, saying he's used to dealing with all kinds of people. She's surprised by his understanding and, as they part ways, cheerfully reminds him that today was meant for celebrating his achievements. He thanks her and wishes her well. Before leaving, she teasingly asks if he plans to invite her to his room. Caught off guard, he hesitates, making her laugh and remind him that girls aren't allowed in the boys' dorm. They agree to meet outside next time before saying goodbye. Exhausted, Kanata returns to his dorm and collapses onto his bed, only to find someone already there. His new roommate, Sim, jokes that Kanata has mistaken his bed for his own. Both are surprised to see each other again. Sim acknowledges their shared experience during the entrance exam and apologizes for running away last time. Kanata reassures him and offers a lollipop as a friendly gesture. Curious, Sim asks if Kanata is from the mines and how he ended up at MRDO. Kanata simply replies that he was recruited and doesn't know much beyond that. As they chat, Sim enjoys the lollipop and asks why Kanata joined MRDO. Without hesitation, Sim explains that he's here to restore his family's status. He shares that Milo mainly accepts people from privileged backgrounds, while those from less fortunate families have to compete through special selections, with only a few succeeding. He elaborates that for declining aristocratic families like his, getting in is a brutal competition with huge financial costs. His family took on more debt to send him here, and the pressure weighs heavily on him, making him clutch his stomach. Kanata, surprised, admits he thought MRDO was more about merit. Sim explains that MRDO, as a hub for energy and technology, is deeply connected to societal hierarchy. The institution commands great respect and offers its members status, power, and wealth, making it the perfect way to restore his family's honor. He continues discussing the responsibilities that come with nobility and his curiosity about the Mets, eager to uncover their true nature. He mentions that the remains of Ian's corpses and eggs have turned into coal over time, making them essentially the same thing. Kanata freezes, shocked by this revelation. He asks for clarification, and Sim, confused, explains that it's common knowledge that Ian's remains eventually become coal. Kanata is stunned, realizing he never knew this truth. He wonders if this information is deliberately kept from ordinary people. He recalls his boss's warning that leaking information could lead to dire consequences. The miners had never been given a chance to question anything, and steam technology had been accepted without much thought. As he looks out at the city, he's overwhelmed by the realization of what fuels its immense energy. He questions what the Mets truly are. Meanwhile, at Arya's residence, his companions report that everything is running smoothly. He listens, relieved, but one of them hesitantly asks if Notorious Zero is really as important as they think and whether Kanata was the right choice. He confidently assures them that Kanata's potential has exceeded expectations. This time, success is crucial. However, the companions warn against being careless. With a serious expression, he reminds them that great power requires great sacrifice. Every individual who underwent absolute zero perished within 6 months, but he believes that if anyone can succeed, it's Kanata, because he's far from ordinary.